Hello everyone, this is Noir Tapes back with another plugin review. Today I'm looking at a free plugin, one that you can all go grab at the end of the video. I might even put a link in the description, we'll see. Today we're looking at a plugin called Tape Cassette 2, made by Caelum Audio. This is a free lo-fi plugin. I don't remember specifically when I got this plugin, but I don't really use it either. I have a lot of other lo-fi plugins to use, so it's just nice to have though. So I was going to break it down real quick and then use some examples. I'm not going to do a pricing comparison for this one because it's free. I recommend Origin, but I've done a plugin review of that before. There's no point doing a pricing comparison on a free plugin. This is more or less just a review, a breakdown, and pretty much a plug for the plugin. Anyways, let's start. So up the top, you have presets. I made my own user preset, which just completely sets it back to default because the default preset itself still adds a little bit of noise and wow and flutter and a little bit of low pass, so I didn't want that. We moved down from the presets. These are all essentially fancy graphics. This doesn't do anything, it's just a picture. These move when the audio is incoming. This is the left side of the audio and this is the right side of the audio. When the audio is incoming, which you'll see in a bit when I do examples, you'll see them bounce up and down, and this will change in volume depending on the saturation you add and other things. Up in the top right here we have oversampling. I had to do some research to find out a couple of things on this plugin. Oversampling was one of them. Essentially, from my research, oversampling is upscaling the audio to higher sample rates. If the audio is at a standard 44,000 for the sample rate, when you oversample, you times that by 2. And then you times it by 4. So you're basically increasing the resolution of the sound. 16 is the highest one on here, and that will be the highest resolution you can get out of this plugin. You probably won't notice it when you start to mess around with the oversampling. I don't really know why you'd want a high oversampling on a lo-fi plugin, but it's there if you want it. I was reading that if you have plugins that go up to 128 times and stuff, the CPU starts to tank a lot when you have them up this high in oversampling. So just a bit of knowledge there. I just keep it at 2. Now the IR down here I also had to research because I didn't really know what it meant. It was pretty obvious when you turn it on and off what it does, but I wasn't really sure what it meant exactly. So according to my research, IR stands for impulse response, and on the website they had it listed that this turns on a selectable type 1 cassette impulse response. Impulse response is basically the way sound sounds in a room or coming out of a cassette or coming out of a VHS. When you have sounds coming out of a VHS or a cassette, you'll notice that just by default the sounds have less high end because of old age and stuff. And that's essentially what this does. It makes it sound like it's coming out of a cassette. It emulates that response. You'll hear it when I turn it on and off when we have the examples. It's pretty obvious. Next is the auto gain. As you add saturation and stuff to your sound, it will increase the volume, and that'll be obvious on these left and right. But if you have the auto gain compensation turned on, it will maintain the input that came into the plugin. Down here you have saturation. This adds higher harmonics. It's pretty obvious when you start messing with the saturation. Next you have low pass. This adds a filter to the top end of your sound and gets rid of the highs. Another one that's very obvious when you start to play with it. Next you have the noise knob. This adds a bit of digital noise, also very obvious when you start to play with it. The wow knob adds slight pitch variations in a slower sort of sine wave to the sound. You'll hear it when I start playing around with it on the chords. Flutter does the same thing as wow, except at a much quicker sine wave resolution, so it goes up and down much faster. Another one you'll hear that's pretty obvious when you start playing with it. And then this is just the output gain down the volume here. Alright, let's show you some examples, hey? So I have some chords and a drum loop. So I'll play with the chords first. This is what they sound like without the plugin on. So I'm going to turn the plugin on. It should sound the same. The first thing I'll do is turn on the impulse response so you can hear that obvious change that I was talking about. It's not as obvious without any of the effects on, but there's a slight change in the high end essentially, and probably a boost in the bass, but there's no bass in the sample, so I can't confirm or deny. So if I was to use this on the chords, next I'd be adding a bit of saturation to add some upper harmonics, and then I'd bring the low pass down. Add some digital noise. add some wow. Maybe a tiny bit of flutter as well. And lastly, I'll hit the auto gain because you can see the levels are up here now. And now that we've done some adjustments with the plugin, you can hear the difference with the IR now, the impulse response. And there you go, we've just added some lo-fi effects to our chords. As I said, this is a free plugin, so you can't expect a lot. The paid ones I have are better, they sound better, they have more flexibility and customization, but this is okay for a free plugin. Definitely a good beginner plugin for sure. Alright, I'm going to set it back to factory reset, and then I'll add it to the drums. The impulse response when you add it to the drums is much higher. You'll notice it straight away. It almost feels like the drums are underwater. The highs have been completely cut off. There you go, that's sounding pretty good. I wouldn't add any wow and flutter to the drums, doesn't make any sense. And there you go. I'll do it on and off for you. Obviously there's a change in volume, which makes it sound better to your ears automatically. But essentially what it's done is it made those highs very subdued and not as present, and it makes the bass in the samples sound a bit better. So let's play it all together, make the whole beat sound like it's coming out of a cassette. It sounds pretty good on the whole beat actually. I did add a bit of wow after I talked about not adding that to the drums. Adding wow to the drums by itself doesn't make any sense because of the bass in the drum sample. But if you're adding it to your whole beat like this, adding a subtle bit of wow, you won't notice it too much. And ultimately when you come to master the beat at the end anyways, your bass will be put in mono, so it won't matter in that regard. But on drums by themselves, you wouldn't add wow or flutter. It just doesn't make any sense. But with other melodic components, feel free to add a bit of wow. So I'll do a before and after on the beat as a whole. You can hear the highs are very subdued. It sounds a lot more like a lo-fi beat than without the plugin on it for sure. Anyways, thank you for watching. Go grab this plugin if you feel like you need a new lo-fi plugin, something to change it up. It is free, so there's no harm there. You just add it to your arsenal, really. It does a few things. It sounds decent. Obviously, you can't expect too much from a free plugin, but I like the way it looks for one, very minimalist, very simple. And I think if you were just buying your first lo-fi plugin, this is definitely, it's free. So you're not buying anything, so you may as well cop it. This and Origin are the two I would definitely cop if I was starting from scratch and I didn't have a lot of money, or I didn't want to buy anything to start making music. Anyways, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.